A few months ago, I was on a walk and I got captured by the Google Street View car, which was the greatest moment of my life. But upon looking at the image, my face was blurred. And that had me thinking, what else is blurred on Google Maps? Because they clearly blur faces for privacy reasons and sometimes private residences, but apparently there's a whole world out there of blurred locations that they don't want you to see. So I figured we'd investigate some of these crazy blurred locations to see what's actually behind them. So with that being said, we obviously have a lot to do, so grab your popcorn and let's do this. Guys, we're starting off with something crazy because we are currently at the largest power plant in the entire country and world, the Indian Point Energy Nuclear Center here in New York City. This thing at one point powered 25% of New York City, and now since then it's been decommissioned, so all of the 3 nuclear reactors have now been phased out. Nowadays you could find literally nobody around here. We are here by ourselves, entire nuclear area. At one point this thing was hustling and bustling with thousands of workers and obviously a lot of concerns because of the nuclear nature of it. They ended up closing it down because of environmental issues, but this thing is now a complete relic and beauty of New York State. We're gonna see how close we can get to it. You're not supposed to be here, so if you're watching this New York State, I'm sorry. Hopefully I'm allowed in here. But let's go ahead further into this to see what's going on. Oh, and one more thing. Since this thing is not fully decommissioned yet, that means there's still a little bit of radioactivity that may be happening. So as we get closer to it, there may be an increased chance that we get some pretty bad exposure. Let's go in. So here we have huge sirens that seem to be thrown out as a result of the decommissioning. You obviously don't need these anymore, but those are cool to see. They have an old security center over there for people to watch over to make sure everything's right. I'm not sure if this place is still maintained at all. The grass is starting to become overgrown, so I don't think anybody monitors this whatsoever at this point, which is good for us. There's a sign there that says danger high voltage ahead. So let's go ahead. All right, you don't see this every day, but we came across a sign here that says radiologically controlled area, radioactive materials. You need something required for entry. No eating, drinking, or chewing. So behind me, I guess in there's kind of some funk happening. And then of course in the actual power plant areas, we're probably going a little too close to the sun here. There's probably actually some active radiation happening on low levels. So I don't want to spend too much time here, but this place is like the Chernobyl of the United States. All right, so we're gonna go to the belly of the beast, a little bit closer to what looks like a fuel tank here. So I don't think this necessarily is super radioactive, super rusted and stuff. As we get into there more, yeah, not a soul is nearby here. You have one of these old cargo containers. I'm like expecting somebody to like jump out of here. Okay, we're good. Nobody in there. We are definitely in some uncharted territory. I could see why they wanted to blur this. This is so cool getting this close to one of these things. Where do you get this access? An abandoned nuclear facility? I'm gonna touch it. It's like touching the butt from Nemo. No. Here we have a danger sign that says follow confined space entry procedure before entering. Apparently you have to be briefed on how to properly enter one of these things or else obviously something bad will happen to you. So I'm not gonna mess around with this. It's also bolted on so it doesn't look like I can open it, but I guess this is the entry point for certain people. And then there's also a ladder on the side which looks to be a little bit janky, so I'm not gonna climb that, but you could of course go on top as well. All right guys, I think we reached our limits because behind me is a sign that says notice owner controlled area badge holders. Should an event occur requiring your exit from the site, you will hear public address announcements or receive instructions from security. And even crazier is that in this warning sign behind me, if you are not personnel that's supposed to be here, they say that they will use deadly force to get you out of here. Clearly a lot going on though at the Indian Point power plant. This was really cool to see. Next segment. You're probably wondering where I'm standing outside of a KFC, and that's because KFC is notoriously blurred on many Google Maps locations because the Colonel's face is actually picked up by Google's AI facial recognition software and it blurs out the entire front. So this massive KFC face on Google Maps, as you can see, you are unable to see it. So this is the case for a lot of Wendy's, even some Starbucks, Jollibee's, any place that has any sort of face, for the most part, is going to be blurred. And in addition to the sign right there, there's also sometimes on the front they'll have his face, and then even inside, as you can see, some of the picture frames has the Colonel's face. So what they do is just usually blur the entire building. Although recently KFC has pushed back on this, and they are in an attempt to unblur all of the locations because it's bringing a lot of issues because people can't straight up find the restaurant. So check out your local KFCs. Let me know if it's blurred or unblurred. It's gonna be a mixed bag. Hopefully for the most part they're unblurred now because it's actually pretty ridiculous they're blurring KFCs, which is a top 5 restaurant globally. The next blurred Google Maps location we're gonna be investigating is right here in New Jersey at Jersey City. So behind me we have the skyline, and if you look over there, you will see the Statue of Liberty. Very, very far away because we're unable to access it unless we actually go onto Ellis Island, which is where the Statue of Liberty is. But I just wanted to call this out because the Statue of Liberty is technically blurred on Google Maps because the AI facial recognition software for Google picks picks up on any sorts of faces, and since there is a massive chiseled face on Lady Liberty, they actually blur her out on Google Maps. Although I think recently they've been looking to update that for statues and stuff, but nonetheless, one of the United States' largest landmarks is actually blurred on Google Maps. Here's some B-roll of what she looks like up close. I'm sure most of us have seen her before, but Michael was actually there recently, so we're gonna insert some nice good old B-roll of Lady Liberty's face, and you are seeing it, but you can't see this on Google, so that's kind of cool. We are inside the admissions area where you buy tickets, and there is no sign of her face anywhere, so I think there might be like a wider copyright issue and not a sign of her face anywhere. So it might be a larger sort of conspiracy, who knows? I thought that was interesting. We're in New York City, and right here and behind me is one of the largest blurs on all of Google Maps in Manhattan, so we're gonna take a look at what's going on. From the looks of things, I'm not sure why it's blurred, but I'm sure there's some skeletons hiding in some of these buildings, and maybe into the park there's even some crazy things, so let's see why it's blurred. Okay, so we are actually right in the heart of NYU, where, fun fact, I went to college. And right down here is something that I could see this being blurred for whatever reason, but this is like a little alleyway that you can walk through to get to another street. So I don't think you're supposed to necessarily go through here. It used to be a little bit of a shortcut. I think they even shoot some films here, so maybe that's why it's blurred. There could be something around that, but overall, nothing too suspicious. Let's look further. There are a lot of residential apartments and stuff along here, so that could be some of the reason for the blurs, but then again, every single building is either commercial or residential, and they're all privately owned, so I don't think that's the reason, so there must be more to this. So the biggest blur by far is right behind me. It is the Washington Square Park arch. For whatever reason, this thing is blurred and has been blurred for years. I think this is the main reason. So for whatever reason, you're not able to basically show the arch on Google Maps, even from a distance. So what you're seeing behind me, unless you are here in person, you are unable to see it. So get a good look at it, because you can't find this on Google. Some of the reasons why this may be blurred is for crowd control purposes, and then also to deter vandalism, because apparently this is one of the highest vandalized structures in all of New York City. So I guess by keeping it off of Google Maps, people just won't realize that this exists. But it does, and it's huge. It's kind of like the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. It's basically the same exact size. There used to be an urban legend that if you walked underneath the Washington Square Arch, then you wouldn't graduate and you'd have no success in life. So I think recently, maybe because of that, maybe too many people were failing out of class, they actually put in barriers here. So the lore kind of deepens. I don't know who these two people are on it. They look to be some like 1700s colonial people that probably had their hands in finding some of the colonies and maybe New York specifically. Let's go into the park a little bit, because I'm not 100% certain that the arch is the reason it's blurred. So let's see if there's anything inside there that's a little more sketchy. This is the front view of the arch, and through it you can see the Empire State Building. So it is a staple structure in New York City because of how cool and how unique it is. It's very big, it's monumental. People take pictures in front of this all the time. So I guess they're doing illegal activity, because if it's blurred on Google Maps, you'd think you're unable to take pictures in front of it. Kind of like the Eiffel Tower at night, how there's like some copyright protection. There may be a little bit of that going on. Who knows? All I know is this thing has been blurred forever and nobody has any idea why. Also, the brownstones behind me could be the culprit because they are private residences, though there are a lot of movies that shoot out of these apartments. I think Hitch and a couple other movies shoot from there. I think some of the NYU higher personnel, like the president, also live in these brownstones. So there's a wider conspiracy that just any sort of elite wants to have their house blurred, or the general area. So that could certainly be it as well. Another reason it could be blurred, there's actually two reasons. Because of the AI recognition software detects faces and blurs anything, there's so many people in the park, so maybe they just, as a whole, to protect everybody's privacy, just blurs the entire thing. Another theory, though, is that they have to blur the entire monument because of George Washington's face and Thomas Jefferson. So similar to the Statue of Liberty and the KFC Colonel Sanders, when it sees a face, it just blurs the entire thing. In any case, though, now you've seen it, so you have access to some privileged information. Let's move on. All right, guys, so behind me is the next blurred Google Maps location. If you look it up on Google, this whole area right here is blurred, and that's because we're in front of Taylor Swift's house in New York City. I think she owns this entire building, and for privacy reasons, because obviously she has a ton of fans across the globe that probably come here on Franklin Street to visit her, this is what it looks like, so she decided to blur it. There's really not much going on. I think it's actually up for lease right now. You can see that it's like being leased, probably going for like $20 million. The penthouse on top is probably some of the most valuable real estate in New York City. We're here in Tribeca, which is one of the more expensive areas and neighborhoods in New York. And no surprise, because Taylor Swift lives here, the most popular pop star probably in the entire world. We're gonna go right up to the door, see how close we can get, see what's going on. Oh, so actually, yeah, the entire building is for lease. I'm gonna go ahead and scan it and see if they give me any details on the pricing. So it tells me it's available for lease, 6,000 square feet on the ground level and the lower level. Term negotiable, rent, please inquire. All right, so there's nothing hard in terms of the pricing around this. Like I said, I mean, we'll put it up right here what the estimate is for the penthouse, which is where I believe she actually lived. Something you also don't see a lot in Manhattan is an actual personal garage, which I think this is the attached garage for here. So maybe the reason it's also blurred is because she's pulling her supercars in and out, and so the license plate's constantly getting picked up, maybe by like Google Earth
Google Maps, whatever it may be. They just had to blur the entire thing, but here it is. So wait, you were looking for Taylor?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
love her so much. Just gave her a little chat up in her camera.
Yeah, so we just actually ran into somebody from Salt Lake City who I talked to for a little bit, and she was here to try to find Taylor Swift, and she told us, as we expected, that that little building with the garage was Taylor Swift's, and then next to it, that big building, the top 2 floors are hers, and then the bottom part that's for rent is just commercial place. Yeah, overall, that was good context to get. It's kind of cool that we ran into somebody who's kind of doing a similar thing. Like, they were basically also looking for Taylor Swift. We were just looking for her home because it was blurred, but I guess a lot of people out here are hunting for the pop star. Moving on to the next location, and it gets much cooler. Well, cool is probably not the right word, but you'll see. The next spot behind me may not look familiar, but trust me, it is pretty important because right behind me is Jeffrey Epstein's apartment. So it's blurred on some versions of Google Maps, but not every version, and it honestly should be because this place is home to a despicable person who's done despicable things, and I don't know what happened inside of these doors or behind these doors, but definitely something. I mean, it's right next to Central Park. It's a great location, honestly, but it's blurred in some versions. We're gonna see how much we can access. You can only really look at the outside, but this is basically where he was picked up from the cops when he ultimately went to court. That kind of jump-started this whole investigation and this ongoing craze. Kind of crazy being outside of this. I feel like nobody really talks about that this is the home to one of the worst people in history. So I don't know which apartment he was, but it looks like there's a total of 10 apartments in this home. I think they actually changed the door. It used to be a little bit different. Now it's just a wood door. I don't think they want people to come here because it's obviously an attraction at this point, but there's like a lot of fences and chains and kind of like inaccessibilities across all the different entrances, and I'm sure that's for good reason. Again, great location, but terrible spot. I believe he lived in that room right up there on the 2nd floor. I think he had that penthouse. I think there's 10 total rooms, but it's only like 2 stories high, and I think he had the top one, if I remember correctly. But a lot of important people have walked these streets right in front of here and even went through the door. People like Prince Andrew, apparently Bill Gates, and we'll see what else is on the list, but a lot of important people have visited this building, and now it's blurred, but now you guys have seen it. Let's move on to the next spot. The next blurred Google Maps location we're gonna be investigating is right here in this park behind me. So basically the entire outskirts of this park are blurred, and even inside in some of the geolocations are blurred. I have no idea why. It's just a park, seemingly like nothing really bad going on. But something interesting to note is that there's actually a mail truck that's kind of staking out right here. I don't know if that means that there's somebody who lives inside here that needs to get their mail delivered. That would make sense because a lot of the private residences are blurred on Google Maps for privacy reasons. So maybe there's somebody in there. We're also gonna see if we see the mailman within there. Maybe we could question him and ask him what's going on. But let's go inside. I have no idea. Maybe there's also some like larger conspiracies, maybe a couple murders or something that happened in here. But let's go inside. So far, so good though. I don't see any houses or anything like that. Just looks to be like an overgrown park. This is a convenient roadblock, just like a tree falling in a forest in front of you. It's like a child wrote this, but I guess we just go around it directly. That won't deter us from moving and exploring this blurred place. It does take a lot of force though to push this over. There might be like giants living in this forest or something, because how do you uproot a massive tree like this? I don't think I've ever seen the bottom of a tree. It's kind of cool to see. All right, I found a bridge right here that somebody must have built. So this is a pretty developed area. That means we have to go deeper to really look further into this. So there's even more fallen trees here that you would think would be where most people turn around, but it looks like there's some ways to go around it. So I'm gonna continue forward and try to snake my way around this tree. They're definitely hiding something though. That is 2 trees within the span of like half a mile. Okay. I see another person in here. I don't know if that's the mailman, but there's somebody with like a bucket hat just kind of walking through there. That's definitely not a mailman, but that is a person. He might be the person who lives here. All right, I don't want to disturb his peace too much, but I'm gonna go in the direction he was heading from and see if we find anything there. Otherwise, let's maybe get out of here, because maybe he's searching for us because he heard that we entered his home. I think we have to get out of here because I am pretty sure that's a bear. Let's get out of here and let's go to the next blurred location. I'm not playing around with no bears. Right now we're in New York City, and another blur on Google Maps that nobody has any idea why it's blurred is the building right behind me. And when you do go up to it, it says this building is under 24-hour video camera surveillance, and there's like at least 3 cameras. There's a security alert here. I don't think you're supposed to be filming, but of course we have to capture it because it is the public face of a building. I don't know if this is the reason why this whole area is blurred, so we're gonna investigate a little bit further because there's some interesting things around here. Here's another sign. Somebody said nice to this building is under 24-hour video camera surveillance. So it looks to be something that a lot of the locals are familiar with, but from the looks of it, it just looks like a normal apartment building. So there must be more to this story. Okay, here is a Catholic Worker Center. Not sure if it could be that. Nothing too suspicious happening here. Let's keep it moving. Okay, so there's actually a mural right behind me, and my hypothesis is that since it's a face, maybe it got picked up by the AI detection software that blurs anything that shows a face. Although it's only the side of a face, so that could be an interesting angle. Also, murals are always painted over with new murals, so maybe at some point there was a bunch of people painted on the mural, and kind of a la Statue of Liberty and KFC, it just got blurred. But I still think there's something deeper, because I did see something interesting interesting that I don't even believe exists in New York City, but we're about to find out. Okay guys, I figured out the reason why I think this area is blurred. It's because there's an actual cemetery positioned right next door, because that's very unique to New York City to have a full-on cemetery just in the middle of the grid. So we're gonna see if this is actually legit. We're approaching it right now. This is what things look like on Google Maps. Wow, there is. I think it's like a private cemetery. It looks like a garden almost. This is just in the middle of New York City. So this is the New York City Marble Cemetery in recognition of its historical significance, and its preservation was listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Maybe there's something around like preserving it and they don't want to have it like become too much of a tourism spot or whatever. I'm sure there's some reason, likely because it looks to be more of a private cemetery for just a few people. So a couple of notable people who are buried here, and this could explain it, is US President James Monroe, some of the Roosevelt family, and the founder of the New York Public Library, James Lennox. This has a lot of interesting people that are buried in it, so maybe their families wanted to protect this area. Maybe some people were kind of like digging up graves and doing some crazy stuff in here, but this is probably why it's blurred. And then in addition to that, there's also the building that we saw, of course, that was heavy surveillance. Maybe that's the family where they live or something, I'm not sure. But ultimately, this is what you get. Despite living in New York City for 7 years, I've never actually come across a cemetery in Manhattan, so obviously super unique. And since it's federally protected by the Department of Interior, I guess that's why they kind of want to protect things a bit more, so they give it its privacy with the blur. But not for this video, because you guys can see everything. Next location.
We are currently at the Amityville Horror House in Long Island. If you've never heard of the Amityville Horror House, it's basically a house in 1974 in which a man named Ronald DeFeo murdered his 2 parents and his 4 siblings in. What's crazy about this is that, one, it's in a very wealthy Dutch colonial home out here in Long Island, so it's completely random that this happened. But on top of that, all the people murdered were found face down in their bed with absolutely no struggle, and the voices inside of his head is what made him do it. So it continues to be a conspiracy, and people have looked into this for decades and decades. It's been 50 years now. He finally died in prison, the perpetrator who used to live in that house. Now there's new owners there. We're gonna drive around a little bit and see if there's any sort of eerie vibes left over, but I mean, I honestly feel super safe in this neighborhood. It's like one of the nicest neighborhoods I've been in Long Island. Okay guys, so we're passing it right now, and apparently they redid the outside and they hung an American flag across it, so then it would obscure some of the main defining features of it. In addition to that, they even had an address change. They used to be at a certain number, which I'm not gonna say, and they changed it to another number because people used to look this up relentlessly on Google Maps to visit it, like me. But that house has so much history here in Long Island. It's one of the most prolific murders in history because it happened again in an area where you wouldn't expect it. But here we are. So if you can't find it on Google Maps, you could certainly find it here. A family actually moved into that house a year after the murders took place, and then 28 days later, they actually left the house because they were getting heavily haunted. Now, a lot of people say the town also has a little bit of a weird vibe to it, so we're gonna drive through it right now so you can kind of see what's going on in Amityville. A lot of mom and pop shops, feels like old money. They even have a Porsche dealership, so this place is definitely booming a bit. Amityville and Le Bourget Alliance, so there's some French alliance. You know, that's a bad sign for a town where you're partnering with the French. Just kidding, love the French. So let's move to the next segment, which is going to be even crazier. The next blurred Google Maps location we're gonna be looking at is a landmark of New York City because unfortunately somebody died here, and that person is John Lennon of the Beatles, who I think in the 1980s was killed right outside of the Dakota on 72nd Street on Central Park West. He was gunned down by a fan that came up to him and then just decided to shoot him. I think it was actually right there, right where I'm pointing. And on Google Maps, the place that's blurred is his apartment building, which I believe is 3 stories up, that corner one right there. But that's what it looks like in person. I mean, it's a really beautiful spot to have an apartment. I guess a good place to die as well if we're ranking places to die. So the reason why it was blurred is likely the same reason as places like the Washington Square Arch, because they probably just don't want to have a lot of crowds come to it and it's become too much of a public spectacle. And so just to divert a couple of people away, I guess they thought that blurring it on Google Maps would do some of that, but clearly we're still here. There's also other people taking pictures as well, so I think it is a popular spot. But there it is, so now you see it. The next place that was blurred on Google Maps and Google Earth is a place called Playland, which is in Westchester, New York. Now, every single location in Westchester, New York at some point was blurred out because of potential terrorist threats. And this amusement park in particular was identified as a high-risk threat. So anything you see behind me, I'm not sure is still currently blurred, but at one point absolutely was. So if you want to look into what it is, we're not going to actually go inside and just go on the rides because I think it's just like a pretty like low-level fare. But there's a beach attached, which is cool. Not sure who's really going to target this spot. It's kind of dead. Not a lot of people here. I was expecting a lot more. For context, it's a Sunday in the summer. Wouldn't you expect on a beautiful day there to be like thousands of people out here? So I guess you could just, anybody could come in here. There's no admission unless you want to go into the actual park. But yeah, they got like a whole boardwalk over here. I guess it's kind of cool here. Not the nicest looking beaches here in New York. Let's go forward a little bit. Maybe there's something we're missing. Maybe it's blurred for a deeper reason, that there's some like crazy information that is like on the building somewhere. So we'll look into that a little bit. But I think just generally Westchester was freaking out a little bit and they said, no, blur it. Playland's like our big landmark. We can't have this on Google Maps, which
which is maybe why nobody could find this place, because if you're not having it on Google Maps, if you can't like zoom into the street view to see what it looks like, who's gonna bring their kids here? All right, what do you know? There's locks on the door. This is becoming very quickly an abandoned amusement park. Dear Playland customer, Playland Ice will be closed this summer, the entire summer? It will reopen September 2nd for the fall/winter. I guess I came at like the worst possible time. They also have a restaurant that looks like it no longer exists. It says restaurant, but if you look on the inside, there's nothing there. Looking inside, it actually looks quite fun. It looks like people are enjoying themselves in there. You see a lot of friend groups going in. I'd love to go in, but the purpose of this video is to investigate blurred Google Maps locations, so we are going to the next one right now. Right now, we're at the Branch Brook Park in Newark, New Jersey. This is a massive park in the middle of Newark. It's actually quite beautiful, but on Google Maps, there is a huge blur right in this general vicinity, so we're gonna investigate it to see what is blurred and why it's blurred. So let's go in. First thing I notice is just a lot of open space. It's a good trail to walk on, run on if you live in New Jersey. I see a playground right here. Oh, that would make sense. I wonder if Google blurs maybe like elementary schools and playgrounds because there's kids. That would make sense because there's a lot of privacy concerns about blurring kids' faces and stuff. So I think it makes sense that they're just like, you know what, we don't want to deal with the headache of capturing kids on camera, so let's just blur the entire vicinity. That makes a lot of sense. I think that's actually it. I don't know how much we're able to show because, I mean, there is a playground with kids playing there, but I think that is literally the reason why this park is blurred. Makes a lot of sense when you go in person to investigate. I'm glad I went, otherwise I'd have no idea. I'll take a walk up here just in case there's anything else fishy, but for the most part, it just looks like there's this playground, but maybe there's like something hanging in the trees or whatever, which I'm not seeing. It is just simply a bunch of kids playing on a playground. There's also a basketball court back here. I think people are just playing. Yeah, really not much other activities, so I guess that's the reason. Now you know.
All right, well, that was a lot of fun visiting these different blurred locations. Make sure to respect people's privacy, though. With that being said, though, thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to see more content, make sure to click here, click here. Otherwise, subscribe on your way out, and I'll see you next time. Peace.